Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. The Indianapolis Colts were I don't want to say dumpster fire because that's not a entirely accurate way to describe them. They were a Chernobyl after a 4th of July firework mishap where instead of losing your thumbs, you lose half of your country. That's how bad of a mess this team was. Firing their head coach, firing their offensive coordinator, not having anyone who'd call an NFL play on their roster or on their coaching squad. Jeff Saturday had never coached a game outside of high school. Moseys on in to Las Vegas after being the coach for 45 minutes of the Indianapolis Colts and walks away 1-0 over Josh McDaniels, Derek Carr, and the rest of these hapless Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders fall to 2-7. Second loss at home. Colts now 4-5-1. And I've been a Raider. You've been a Raider fan a little longer than me. I've been a Raider fan about 20-something years. It's hard to think of a new low going into a game, despite all the problems that the Raiders have had and the drastically altered expectations. There was no tanking by this Raider squad. They were playing their starters. They were playing to win.
They played hard.
This was not a tank. This was not a tank job. They did their absolute best to beat the most hapless team in football. And the Las Vegas Raiders are now officially the most hapless team in football.
Yeah, I took a look at this in Indianapolis Colts team before the game, and
your cat's waving its butthole at you the way Jeff Saturday waved his butthole at the Raiders today.
Yeah, look,
your cat's like, look at my butthole.
I'm not saying this wasn't a bad loss because it was a terrible loss. God damn it, RJ. Yeah. Look at his butthole. I'm going to get him right now so you can look at his butthole.
No, he's pointing his butthole at you. If that's Saturday, you're Josh McDaniels, and I'm Raider fandom, watching it happen before me, disgusted, wanting to throw up.
Yep. You done? Talking about my cat's butthole?
Waving his butthole?
I mean, he's been gone. Look, this Colts team, talent-wise, wasn't as bad as we like to make it out to seem. They didn't have their best offensive player for, 3 games. Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan wasn't benched because he wasn't playing well. He was hurt. He had like a shoulder injury or something like that. So is it shocking that they lost? Not necessarily, because honestly, I think that the Colts up and down were probably talent-wise the better team.
They had 7 Pro Bowlers last season.
Yeah. The issue is I think that their head coach ran out of excuses because they tried a bunch of different guys. He wanted Wentz. It didn't work. Phillips Rivers thing, they went to the playoffs, but they didn't do anything. Collapsed last year. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, this is your last chance, Frank Reich, to get this ship turned around. No excuses. So the injuries and all that shit just didn't matter. And he got axed.
Yeah.
So let's just take a look at, I'm not trying to make this seem what it's not, but the Colts were a better team. And they just happened to have some injury issues that caused their season to not go the way they wanted it to. And, it just happened to, everyone seems to get it right when they play us.
That's I think that's what it comes down to, right?
Everyone,
it's like
Jonathan Taylor hasn't been his best, but let's give him a 66-yard run just to get his confidence up.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about a lot of things. You know what, guys? If you guys are really, depressed out there, have a good time. Find your love. You haven't made it until you got spammed.
Whatever viruses your laptop may get by clicking on the sex bots in our chat right now.
Listen, it's worth it.
It's worth it, right? I mean, how could this day be worse?
Look, our coaching wasn't the best. I think that we had some issues with drop balls again.
Yep.
I think that, this is probably the game that I would put the least amount of the blame on Carr, but he still had some to go
That's
around.
big of you. It's
No,
rare.
he started off like shit. He righted the ship, but it seems like he's getting back into that mentality of I'm going to go this way no matter what.
Mhm.
Because on that last pass play, Foster Moreau was wide open for the first down, and he didn't look at him. I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of those, like that quadruple coverage pass that he threw it down to, like he had his issues, but ultimately, it's a mix of everything. Wherever you want to slide the scales, coaching, execution, talent, injury, wherever you want to slide the scales, the mix was we just didn't get it done.
This continues the trend of every single team the Raiders have played this season. They've scored more than their average points per game. This is every single game so far, 9 for 9. The Colts were averaging 14 points a game coming into today. They put up 25. Jonathan Taylor went hog wild. 22 carries, 147 yards, touchdown. Broke that 66-yarder, which was just a complete collapse on all three layers of our defense. Matt Ryan, my son is crying. Yeah. The faded remnants of Matt Ryan went off. 21 of 28, 222 yards. He had a 39-yard run. You want to know?
I don't know what the fuck you were looking at, Rock Yassin. He just turned the other way and let him run right by him. And then there was a block in the back downfield, and they didn't call that.
You want to know what Matt Ryan's Matt Ryan's been in the NFL for 117 years. You know what his career-long run was before tonight?
It's probably like 20, 25, something like that.
20 yards.
Yeah.
He got a 39-yarder at 97 years old. And we'll get to our offense. We'll definitely get to our offense here in a sec. But I think this is just another example of our defense, of people like break their own records against this defense. Literally the worst offense in football, like by points per game, the Colts were able to put up 25 points.
That's a little skewed because you did have an injured Matt Ryan going out there for like 3 weeks before he actually got shut down. And you didn't have your best running back, like one of the best players in the league, for 3 games of that. And they both came back on the same week. This is like everything converged to like, hey, you got a little bit of more.
That's how you bounce back, baby. Play the Raiders.
You bounce back and play the Raiders. But you know what? Look, they did get their 2 best offensive players back. And you got a little bit of extra juice because Bradley and Ngakoue, like they're playing the Raiders again, freaking facing. There's there's a couple of guys out there that played for us last year.
Sure. But I will say this, like the terrible angles, the poor tackling,
that's there too.
The not diving on the clear, like the Colts offense was begging this Raiders defense to win the game. That fumble on their second to last drive, that just fall on it. Just fall on it. Game's over.
Yeah, Butler, what are you doing, man?
Just fall on it. Game's over.
The thing is, they're trying to do too much. Butler tries to do that, and then you have on that long run by Matt Ryan, you had Rock Yassin just run the opposite way. I don't know what he was looking at. He wasn't looking at the play. Ran the other way, and Matt Ryan ran around him on that long touchdown run. Trevon Merrick tried to cheat and peek into the backfield a little bit too long instead of playing his lane, and Merrick got freaking swallowed up, and that was the hole that opened up. Carr a couple times just pre-snap, I'm going to go here no matter what, and the coverage didn't dictate that he go that way, and he did it anyway. It's just we're trying to do too much. It's like everyone's like, well, if I just make a little bit of a play, a little bit extra, like no, just make the play that's there. I hate to say this, but do your job and have everyone else do theirs. And we're not doing that right now. We're not doing that. We're just trying to do too much. And I bit my lip, and it's fucking. I already feel it. Shut up.
The rare time you bit your lip. Normally you're flapping your lips.
Oh, fuck.
Very, very rare. Yeah, so Matt Ryan came back. Jonathan Taylor came back. Their offensive line started to actually play decent. Like their offensive line was supposed to be their strength the last season coming into this season. hasn't been playing well until this time. Crosby did get a sack, ended the sackless streak. We did get a turnover, ending the turnover streak. So we did get pieces, right? Like we were last in the NFL in sacks, still are, but we got one. Last in the NFL in takeaways, still are, got one. But even then, like the elements of our defense of just like being fundamentally sound, playing your role, not there, and we do nothing flashy, right? Do nothing flashy. And so again, the continued element of what is our defense? Not a lot of talent. Patrick Graham seems lost. We're just not committing to anything. Right? Are we going to be a bend don't break like Gus Bradley? Gus Bradley ran a Gus Bradley defense, and it held us to 20, right? Like, and we were playing the Gus Bradley defense well, right? Short passes underneath. He's gonna, just don't let anything break deep, right? Even though we got some deep passes, right? We were able to, do that. But
were talking about last year?
No. Gus Bradley, as Colts defensive coordinator today.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like we're playing Gus Bradley's defense generally correctly, right?
Yeah.
A lot of underneath stuff, screens, crossing routes, like that's what you do against Gus Bradley. And even then we were still able to get a deep one, right? Devontae got that great deep pass. Just get guys in stride and let them roll. And the credit Josh McDaniels, like he knew how to play, even like the worst offensive coordinators in football know what the strategy is against Gus Bradley, right? And McDaniels more or less did it, right? But penalties again, we have 10 penalties.
Yeah, 10 accepted penalties.
10 accepted penalties, which put us in multiple 1st and 20s, 1st and 25, 2nd 25s. Kept holding us back. And again, Gus Bradley has an identity. You can scheme against it, but at least all right, we're not going to give up deep. We're not going to give up deep plays. We're not going to give up big plays. Patrick Graham, what's the identity? We give up big plays. We also get chunked apart. We don't get sacks. We don't get takeaways. We're not committing to try to be good at one thing. We're just trying to juggle every single plate, and we're dropping all of them, and it's just shattering on our kitchen floor.
No identity. What are we? We're not the type of team.
Genderless. We're transitioning.
Yeah, we're not the kind of team that can do everything. We have to focus on if we want to be a passing team, we have to focus on that, and we have to play more running backs that can,
Johnny Gones, can we frame Josh McDaniels with some dead hookers?
I mean, sure. I mean, I think we did that. What was that in Godfather 2? I can't for the life of me figure out why. I just can't remember. I gave the movie, so you know what it is. But
can't say
can't leave it down. But there's no identity. There's no identity to this team. Sometimes they want to run the ball. Sometimes they want to throw the ball. Sometimes they throw the ball on 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, and 4th and 1, and then we lose the ball. Sometimes they run the ball on 2nd and 9 and 3rd and 9. It's like, what are you going to be? What is your strength? And I don't see that on the offense. I don't see that on the defense. And it's just you combine that with the lack of talent. Like our offensive line is terrible. It's not good at all. I think Miller played a little bit better today than he had in the past. But Jesus, the other guys I don't think Parham got a penalty, but the other 3 guys getting penalties left and right. Shit, this is hilarious. Jehu Dawson. Whew, we almost moved back in the draft there.
Dodge that bullet.
We almost fucked around and fucked up our draft position.
We almost fucked around and won a game.
Yeah, I know. What the hell are we doing?
A bunch of bums.
But I think maybe if I'm trying to be optimistic, it's just teaching everything we want to teach. Focus on an identity when we have more players that fit our system. But for right now, let's just teach what we want to teach, and then we'll adjust it as we go. But I mean, we're just lacking too much talent in too many areas. Our whole secondary basically and our linebacking core are full of undrafted free agents and washouts from other teams. And our offensive line are undrafted free agents and washouts for other team and young guys. You got 3 big sections of your team that are devoid of talent: your secondary, your linebacking core, and your offensive line.
So the more I'm involved in TV production, the more I'm learning about how like bookies think like betting lines, how they work, things like that. Raiders were 6-point favorites today, right? Despite all the problems the Raiders have had, all the deficiencies they showed, the massive leads they've blown, the giant holes in their roster. There's enough talent around, and that's how bookies think, right? Because in football, all that matters is wins and losses, right? But when it comes to gambling, all that matters is what's going to happen that day. And so they look at things like DVOA, and they look at things that like scoring margins, things like that. And the Raiders are far, far better at that than their record, right? Again, record's all that matters. But the way gamblers look at it, they look at all those other elements. And the Raiders keep having enough of those elements to keep being favorites. 6-point favorites today. Like we're constantly favorites in these games against, because again, we're playing really bad teams. And yet we keep losing them. Like there's again that weird, tangible, like fart cloud around the Raiders that these bookies are looking at. They have talent. They have Pro Bowlers. They've been close games against good teams. They've had close games against bad teams. Their point margin is not as bad as their record says. Like they have all these positive elements, so we're going to keep making the odds close or making them favorites, or in this case, big favorites, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet we keep shitting the bed. Like whatever the thing is that makes the Raiders shitty, even the bookies can't figure it out. Even the guys who have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on the line to know what's going on don't know what that shit cloud around Raiders Stadium is.
It's because it's that fool's gold, man, and it fools the best of us. It's when you look at somebody who has high highs and low lows, but their consistent medium is not that great. Mm-hmm. We look at the highs of this team. Look at the high end players on this team. Name the high end players on this team. There's like a handful, like 5 out of 53 on the roster. Name your mid players. There's not a lot. And there's a lot of like average, below average, and bad players. And it's just a shame, man. It's a shame that
we got a lot of great players, but they're all on IR.
I mean, yeah, you didn't have, Renfro or Waller really at all this year. You had them for a few games. It's a shitty situation when you come in with a head coach that maybe didn't have a good enough or as good a plan as he should have to implement his system. You have a defensive coordinator who did the same. And maybe, hopefully, you're hoping for one or the other. Maybe one of them is a little bit better at implementing than the other is to a brand new crop of players.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like. A few times it seemed like the guys went rogue, and it didn't work out. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to do your own thing, it better work. And, I don't know what Butler was thinking with that fumble. I'm so pissed off about that. That was the game.
And every Raiders loss this season has had a moment like that, right? Cardinals, it was just, hey, tackle Kyler Murray one time, one of those scrambles, we're set. Titans, Waller just catches one of those end zone passes, we win. What was there was a really bad penalty in another game. Anyway, it's like all these close games, it's like, yeah, one play this way, one play that way, and we get it. And sometimes it's things out of our control, right? Like penalties and things like that. Some of the things very much in our control. Waller's drops, Butler not jumping on the ball, things like that. And I guess that's why it's so frustrating in the sense that we're always these one play ways. We can consistently be bet upon to blow that one big play every game.
Yeah, so this year we're now 0-6 in one-score games. Last year we were 7-2. So for you math majors, that's 7-8, just under 500. Mm-hmm. So games that are not one score.
You did that off the top of your head, or did you have a calculator?
Yeah. We're 2-1. So last year we were 5 and what would that make it? 5-7, right? Because we were 7-0, then I may make it 5-7, or no, 3-7 on non-one score games. Well, last year, if we were 7-0 last year in one score games that were more than one score, that would have mean we were 3-7, right?
Well, count of the playoffs.
No, in the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were 3-7, and this year we're 2-1, so it's 5-8. Yeah, that's about who we've been for the last fucking 15, 20 years. We've been that.
So ever since the very beginning of the season, I was like, all right, I've been on the fence about Josh McDaniels, cautiously optimistic, right? I keep using that phrase, cautiously optimistic. The history's been terrible, but I feel like he's wiser, saying all the right things. It seems like everything's working, right? Before the season started. And I said, hey, no matter what happens, no matter how bad this gets, you give him a full season, right? It's new regime, injuries happen. I may have to like pull that back. Like this loss to this team at this moment, getting outcoached by Jeff Saturday, who's been an interim head coach for 45 minutes. This is god awful. Like, it's one thing to say, all right, I still believe that it's a system that needs to be learned, give these guys a chance to do it. But at some point, there's a stink on you that can't come off. At some point, you're like, Josh McDaniels is going to have to say to his team, hey, do this because I say so. I'm like, you mean to you, the guy that just got out coached by Jeff Saturday? Or are we supposed to listen to that? You know what I mean? It's like no matter how cool your girlfriend is, you're like, hey, you grabbed that dude's dick at the bar 3 weeks ago. And I know you like do my laundry. I know you clean my house. I know you're a great girlfriend, but I'm never going to forget that. Like that'll never, ever leave the back of my mind. And this is kind of one of those moments. This is one of those, like, I know in my head that we need to give Josh McDaniels an entire year at least, no matter how bad things go. But are these players going to ever forget today and how bad it was?
I don't know if it quite works that way in the NFL. Because there's tape, you know, and I just think we're just not that good, man. I'm not letting JMD off the hook at all, because ultimately he did lose to a high school fucking football coach. But I don't know that we're that good, man. Well, I want to give you more, but if we're talking about this subject, I just don't think we're that good.
I keep bringing it back to, okay, maybe we're not as good as we hoped, but these players are playing worse than last season. Like that's the kicker. Like if we were in a bubble, you're like, all right, maybe our guys just aren't that good. Maybe our, poor O-line, we can't overcome that. Maybe like the lack of pass rush and bad linebackers and DBs, it's just like, it's going to be that bad, right? Like that's in a bubble with no context. I can accept that. But these guys are playing worse than last season. That's what gets me. That's what's like something changed here. They didn't all in unison get worse or all in unison get old. Like that's not what happened. There was something that made that happen. And I keep trying to give JMD the benefit of the doubt, but like that's the common denominator with all this is the new head coach. Like, unless there's something else going on in that locker room I don't know about, right? Again, Devontae Adams is banging Derek Carr's wife or something. Like, I don't know, right? Like, unless there's something crazy going on in that locker room, the standard operating procedure in my brain is the new head coach, the new guy with the clipboard, the new guy that's the only person that's responsible for every single player on that squad.
Yeah, I fall back to the whole implementing your scheme type of thing. Mm-hmm. And who knows, man? He doesn't have his players, but again, you have to be able to get the best out of the players that you have. If you're just asking, if you have players that just can't do what you're asking of them, and you're pretty much stuck with them, that's a shitty pill to swallow too.
My coworker at the UFC, one of the producers, he's a Chargers fan. I keep giving him shit about Brandon Staley. He texted me. He's like, Jeff Saturday would be the second best coach in the AFC West.
Right? Jesus.
Like, oh, that hurts because that's so scarily potentially true. Like that's like genuinely like, oh man, maybe, maybe.
It's possible. I mean, I'm not gonna say no.
Hey, it's like prove me I'm wrong. Like I dare you. Like show me, prove to me that I'm wrong. Jeff Rowe easy. I love it. That much easier to get rid of McDaniels. I mean,
Dude,
I'm
we're
not
not
in.
getting rid of it.
I'm
Look,
not in. We're not in the mode of let's try to get rid of him. We should be in the mode of like let's figure out what's best for this team. Like, and that's the silver lining to a shit season. And I know it's like with such high expectations for this season, it's another waste of a season, potentially another rebuild, coming off of the best season we've had in 2 decades, like one first or second best season we've had in 2 decades. It's like time for a rebuild. You're like, fuck, what a waste. But that's where we're at. That is it shouldn't be that way. I hate that it's that way, but that's where we're at. Like right now, it should be figure ourselves out, right? We're like a 20-year-old college chick that's trying to find herself by going to Europe, right? Like that's what we're trying to do right now. And so this idea of like, all right, well, let's like, I'm glad that everything went south so we can get rid of the coach. Like we can get rid of the coach for any reason, right? We don't need reasons to get rid of the coach. Like if it's not working, the coach will be get rid of. Right now, it's trying to figure out, is it 100% the coach? Is it Ziegler putting together something bad? Is it the bad roster decisions of the past regime? Is it Derek Carr? Is it 6 or 7 other role players? Like that should be the goal, not I'm glad everything sucks so we can get rid of guys that I currently want right this second after 9 games.
yeah, I mean that's the decision, and I think we're kind of we've been funneled, right? And it's a lot of different things, just how politics, sports, social media, it's like we've all been designed to put blame on one thing.
Mm.
And because that one thing is, I think that's the most important thing. So that thing has to go.
Yeah.
But you have to take a look at another thing too. What if you went into the season and you were like, yeah, we don't really have our guys, and we really can't just gut this entire team and get more and get different players, because it's not how things work. You have guys on, that are under contract, and so what can you do? And this is one of the reasons why I get so like I roll my eyes whenever I read a text from Rory. Oh, but we had to go ahead and let Bisaccia go. We should have kept Bisaccia and this and that. And he's doing a bang up job over in Green Bay, by the way, one of the worst fucking special teams units in the NFL. Anyway, I'm like, dude, I can't think that way anymore. We can't go back in time and say, Rich Bisaccia, we're going to give you this job. We have to look at what we can do now moving forward, where we are now and what we can do moving forward. And that's where I'm focusing my time on. As far as what happens this year, we're out of the fucking playoffs, whatever. If I can move on, as far as I'm concerned, we've been gone for a couple of weeks now, even though mathematically we haven't been. But
douchebag Matt, sweet avatar, by the way. Joker smoking a cigarette with a Raiders jacket. Let's hire Robert Gallery for head coach. Colts did it, and it worked. I mean, couldn't do worse, right? Martin Bartholomew. It's the coaching. We are so predictable on offense, and every offensive play is all of a sudden covered like we play against a super team. It's been like that all year. The frustrating thing is like every now and then we see these brilliant play designs by Josh McDaniels. Like something will pop up like last week against the Jaguars. There's this awesome play where we faked a double jet sweep one way. The whole defense goes one way. Our shitty offense doesn't have to block the guys. Carr rolls out opposite way. Devontae's one-on-one against the safety. Just one sidestep. Safety's lost. Wide open play. Like it was, I was like, oh my God, that is Josh McDaniels at his best. And we get glimpses of that. Just no like consistent pattern of that. No rhythm of that. No, like we're like a really stagnant like power puncher. Like yeah, I have a ton of power in my right hand, but I have no rhythm. I don't set it up with my jab. I don't have the footwork to get in the right position. I don't have my distance management. It's like If they happen to be there, I can knock them out, right? Like I'll throw the right hand, Devontae Adams will run a great route and Carr can hit him if it just happens to work, but there's no process to get there. There's no rhythm setting it all up.
It seems like I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to go there today. It's too predictable. I'm not going to go there.
Glenn Westwood. Carr will do everything in his power to keep us out of the range of drafting a quarterback. He turns into like Pro Bowl Carr mode just to like get us enough wins to keep us out of like the top 15 drafting.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to go there, but what I will say is it seems like there are some players on our team that are going in it for themselves. That's what it seems like. Because there were some plays to be made and obvious plays, and it was like a handshake. Hey, let's get this going. Me and you, we got to teach these guys how to win. And didn't work out good. That's what gets me.
Sure, Mass. Is there a sacrificial lamb tonight? Is someone going to is there going to be a finger pointed by somebody over this game?
I mean, why would you point the finger at Patrick Graham now? It's his defense has been the same the whole year.
Because it's that bad of a loss, right? Like when it's that bad of a loss,
Dude, we didn't give up 40 points. We gave up 25 points. Right? We gave up 25 points. We didn't give up 50. Okay.
We gave up 25 points to a team averaging 14. That's the other part.
Again, RJ, they got their quarterback back, their starting quarterback back from injury, and they got their running back from injury.
And all that matters. Still.
But you have to say it then. You have to say it. You can't.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
But you're not saying that though. That's the thing is you're not saying that.
Added to the equation.
You're framing it in we gave up 25 points to the team that gave up 14 a game. It's like, but yeah. And then when I say that, they got their quarterback back and they got the running back back. Oh, well, yeah, that's all a part of it. Well, it wasn't part of it when you said it. You gotta say the whole thing.
You've already said it twice today.
No, but every time you say it, you have to say it.
Whatever the number is of the Colts being a bad offense, right? They are a bad offense. They're better now than they have been the last few games because they have, some weapons come back. They're still a very much below average offense with their entire unit. They were before those guys went down, and they now are after these guys went down. And that's the other part of this equation. The numbers aren't even telling. As bad as the numbers are for the Raiders, like 26th in points per game, like last in sacks, like all those things. It's even worse than those numbers say because we've played bad offenses. Colts, Jaguars, Texans, Broncos. Like these are really, really bad offenses. And they're still putting up and they're still making our defense look terrible, right? Like, it's like we're playing the Bills and Eagles and like these great offenses. And that's, all right, we're getting torched by Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. It's like, okay, like everyone does, right? We're getting torched by fucking nobodies. We're getting torched by second-year players and like old veterans coming off of injury. Like that's what's scary. And to the original point is a loss this bad, lost 2 points per game, misleading stat because they do have 2 more guys, still a terrible offense. With that many bad offenses that are torturing us, it's like one of those like someone's head's gonna roll type of loss. It feels that way. Like someone has to take the blame for this. It's like politics, right? Like you lose an election, someone's to blame, right? It feels that way to me. Raiders 75-28. Carr crying in the presser. Can't blame him.
3 people have said it now. Look.
At least the UFC was good last night. Dude, the UFC was amazing last night.
It was really good.
It was fucking awesome.
I wouldn't mind if we fired Josh McDaniels today, if we fired him and Patrick Graham, like, you know what? It didn't work. We're not going to win another game because who are you going to get to coach this team if you fire your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator? There's no one on the staff that can really do it.
Well, it's the same thing that I always say with Derek Carr, right? It's like, all right, I'm down to get rid of Derek Carr if you have someone better, right? It's like, if you got a contract for someone else, or you've got, the next big thing, like
we've talked about that.
We talked about this.
I think you want him to be better right this second.
I'm not trying to have that conversation, but my point being, all right,
I'm right.
you're a Josh McDaniels, then what?
Exactly.
Right? Then what? Are we just wasting the rest of the year on an interim coach that's definitely not going to get the job? Or do we have someone we like? That's that. If there's someone marked like if Sean Payton is like ready to rock, fucking Josh, you are gone. Like you are, we will whatever the penalty is, whatever guaranteed money you have, we'll pay it. Enjoy your vacation, JMD. We're out of here.
Yeah, Rob Ryan is by far like the less intelligent Ryan. And his brother really wasn't even that great a freaking head coach.
Nichelle, it's obvious that we're in tank mode, right? Or am I the only one seeing it? And furthermore, we should tank. We were not tanking today. Don't think for a second that the Raiders.
No, they tried hard, man. They just not.
We're playing the start. Like if we were tanking, Josh Jacobs wouldn't be getting reps because his contract.
Devontae Adams was like breaking tackles and dragging guys to first downs. Max Crosby was chasing people down, like up trying to like pump.
We were playing all our starters and best guys. It's not like all our older veterans were getting rotated out for younger guys to get looks. Like this was not a tanking effort. It was the only effort. There was no effort given, no actual effort, and no tanking effort. Minus Jacobs, Devontae, Max, maybe Rock.
I'm not trying to say that they didn't give effort because you saw the effort. They were trying. It's just they're making stupid mistakes. Like Dwayne Thomas said, Masterson and Merrick hit the wrong holes and left the freaking gap wide open. And that's the gap that Jonathan Taylor ran through. I mean, I don't know, man. Are they this stupid? Are they this dumb? Do we have to keep things simple because they were this dumb of players? I mean, I don't know. It's probably a mix of everything, because one thing that I really remembered from the preseason at the owners meetings when they had the car wash pressers, everyone was going through, like the coaches, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, GMs, all that stuff, and McDaniels and Ziegler were saying the same things over and over again. We want smart players, and we're going to get our guys, and they may not be the guys that you think are be the best players, but eventually we're going to get our guys that can play our scheme. And I'm like, now we're looking at this now, and we're like, do they not have confidence in a lot of those players that they have right now? Because what I'm seeing right now is there's a lot of dumb plays being made, a lot of dumb penalties. I don't know, man.
And notice they're not saying that anymore because the guys that they either extended or brought in aren't delivering. You brought in Chandler Jones. He's your guy. He's as much as your guy as anybody, not doing shit. You extended Darren Waller when you didn't need to, not doing shit. You extended Hunter Renfrow, not doing shit. Like, you brought in guys. You brought in your guys. Like, yeah, you've got some baggage from the past regime, but the guys you brought in aren't doing well. The guys you extended aren't doing well. Like, they're not saying, like, they're not saying that anymore. Like, they're changing their narrative. Now it's like, well, it's just, you guys got to execute. It's not, well, we need our guys. We need smart players. Now it's, well, they got to execute. Like, we're doing things right. Just the players aren't executing. Their narrative's changing because their moves they made have been pretty bad. And that's more Ziegler than McDaniels, but, you got to imagine McDaniels had a say in it, right? They seem to be, working pretty well.
Waller and Renfrow got hurt. They're hurt. They haven't been healthy all season. I am going to freaking bang on them for Chandler Jones. Rock Ya-Sin was one of the guys that they brought in. He's been playing pretty good. Everett, not so bad, not so much. Robertson, Meek, he punched out and caused that fumble today, hot and cold. But you're with Hobbs out, you're asking him to do more. Again, the Mark Madsen effect. When you don't have those star players, those guys are asked to do more and they get exposed. When you have better players around them, they can just do their thing and do what they're good at.
They let Alec Ingold go. He had a touchdown today. He's been playing pretty well in his role. And that's the other part too. It's like not just guys you've brought in.
He's not a blocker. He's not a blocker. He doesn't block. We need to. They don't.
He blocks.
No, he doesn't.
Not like Johnson. Not like
he's not a good blocker.
Who's like that's just a pure blocker.
He's not a good blocker.
We
know he's not a good blocker. We can I think we can agree on he's not a good blocker. He's more of a like an H-back style fullback. He's not a true fullback.
He's not as good as Jakob, but he can block pretty well. He can block pretty well.
Yeah.
For like how diverse he is as a running back, you're like, okay, like you can live with him not being Jakob because he can do everything else. But I'm saying is like that's the other flip. That's the other side of the coin, right? It's not just guys you brought in that aren't working out. It's guys you let go that are still performing well. Like Yannick Ngakoue got a sack today against us, right? Like he's getting sacks when we desperately need last in the league in sacks. And we know for sure Yannick Ngakoue had plenty of deficiencies, right? Doesn't play the run, takes plays off, but he gives you 8 to 10 sacks every year, like routinely, like every single season. He gets you X number of sacks. Raiders are last in sacks, even with Max Crosby.
Yeah, the Max Crosby and everyone else. I think Max Crosby has like 8 of our 9 sacks or something like that.
I think the entire team. I think Max Crosby has what 7,
and we have 9.
And the entire team put together has less than that. Whatever the number is, the entire team put together has less than Max.
Well, of course, I think Max has almost all of them. I think
the entire team is like 3.
Perriman has 1, and then I forgot
Chandler
who.
Has 1.
No, Chandler has a half with somebody else.
Does he have 2 halves or something like that?
No, it's 1 half. That's it. I think there's only 2 sacks that aren't Max Crosby. Guarab, that's not true. We're number 1 in handsome scale for their hosts of their podcasts.
We're number 1 in the sweetest names on the roster. Rock Yassin, Amir Abdullah, Tashawn Bauer, Jakob Johnson, Max Crosby. It's got to count for something, right? No? Maybe?
Yeah.
Is there a coach out there that you think's gettable? Is Sean Payton just a pipe dream?
I don't think he's a pipe dream. I think you'd have to pay him a lot. I think Sean Payton wants to run the show. Which
you have to make him a GM.
I think so. I think that's what he's looking for.
Yeah.
I think you have to give him a seat at the table at least. A little bit bigger seat than a head coach normally has. He's won. He gets his teams deep into the playoffs consistently. I mean, I don't know what the structure was like in New Orleans when he was there, how much say he had there. I don't know that you would necessarily move from Ziegler in 1 year. I think you would move on from McDaniels before you move on from Ziegler. Getting rid of a head coach after 1 year is one thing. If you get rid of a GM after a year, you're not going to be good for a while because that just puts you way back.
And it's rough because you can make a case that Ziegler's been worse than McDaniels when it comes to personnel decisions, right? Like the Chandler contract, extending Waller, like some other things that he's done. It's like the Raiders came in with Dave Ziegler came in with a ton of cap space and a full draft, right? Some bad contracts, sure, but a ton of cap space and a full draft. And this is a roster that you've been banging the door all season. That's a bad roster. Like this roster is bad. It's overrated. It's not good. You've been banging that drum all season long. Well, that's Ziegler, right? And he had resources. He had players. He had draft capital. He had money. And
it's a shame. And I think it's one thing too that a lot of these players that he signed from other teams, not like Chandler Jones. I think that Chandler Jones it shines a big light because he's the guy that we signed for multiple years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like everyone was like either a 1 year deal, prove it deal, or like these 3-year contracts where it's like that's like his prove it time. Like I don't want to extend people too far off because I want to see what they have, and it's just it's a shitty situation, man. I think that maybe they were treating this situation, they being McDaniels and Ziegler, as a let's win if we can, but more than likely we're going to end up being shitty and a rebuild before we thought. God damn it, Wayne! I'm gonna fucking mute your ass.
Wayne FG2 just said, "Fire Josh" 50 times in the chat.
It's like, come on, man. I get what you're saying, but don't hijack the fucking chat by just typing the same shit over and over again.
Put in sex leagues. Like a sex bot.
Jesus.
Like a gentleman. And that's what comes down to for me is like, all right, do we move on from Josh and or Ziegler early? Then it's like, okay, then who are we getting? That's the big part. It's because it's now, all right, Did they? But I guess it really just comes down to like, is this whole team just like refusing to buy into these guys? Is the whole team just like, all right, we've given up on our coach? Because it's hard. Like, does that come back after an off
think
season?
they have. I don't think they have given up. They were playing hard today.
They're playing hard, but worse.
They're not we don't know what
is it just not grasping the system? Is it just so much?
I think that's a big part of it. I think it's a big part of it.
Because that's really the question, right? If that's the answer, it's like complicated system. They're taking forever to grasp it. Then you keep them. If that's not the answer, then you got to get rid of them, right? I mean, is it that black and white?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If he's just not doing a good job of teaching, then yeah, because that don't really stage of your life at showing somebody. I mean, for all my deficiencies, I think I do a pretty good job of like teaching people things and like being patient with them when I'm explaining things to them. When I'm at work and stuff like that, when I'm at the gym, I think I do a good job of doing that. And I've been that way for a while. And I think if you're a little too much of a teller and not so much of a shower, not so much of an explainer,
I'm more of a grower.
You're not that good of a teacher. Yeah. You better be. You're fucking light switch. But
Mo's Dizzle. Sorry, but hit Foster Moreau in the hands. Sucks, but shot man. Lost for words. How much of that do you count as a loss? Because it was pretty good coverage. Like it got in Foster's hands, but the linebacker
got poked out. It got knocked out of his hands.
Yeah.
So I mean,
hands would have caught that, but it was good coverage.
Look,
some people are saying
timed right. If it's timed right, it doesn't matter how good your hands are. If it hits your hands before you have a chance to really squeeze onto it, and they smack it out before, it's like, dude, the timing was perfect. What do you want?
But that's my point. Is I think there was enough time for. It seemed like enough time. A perfect catch catches it, right? Hard hands, pulls it in, gets it. Because people are saying drop, and I'm wondering if that's too. I think drop. I think of like Darren Waller in Tennessee, right? Like no one's there, off his hands. I think drop. I think that. I feel like drop's a little too harsh.
Yeah, look. Ultimately, again, we had the ball with a chance to win the game, and we couldn't get it done. And blame it on a mix of whoever you want to blame it on the mix on. But we had, 5 of our 6 wins, or what are we, 2-7 now? So 6 of our 7 wins, or losses, excuse me. We had the ball with a chance to go in and win. The one thing I think that we can say, except for I think the KC game, is we needed a touchdown or somewhat like a touchdown-esque thing, whether it be a 2-point conversion or whatever. It wasn't a kick that was going to win the game. Mm-hmm. So it was multiple people that had to make a play or do their job right. It was our line, the quarterback, and the receiver had to do their job, and we're just not getting it done at the end of games.
Raiders fall for the 7th time this season, this time at home, this time to the Indianapolis Colts and their 45-minute long high school coach, Jeff Saturday, who would be the second best coach in the AFC West right now if he was in the AFC West. We'll discuss a lot more of this as the week goes on. We'll also get into the IR of Waller and Hunter Renfrow and Martinez retiring when he was going to start, had like a career high in tackles. We haven't gotten into that. I think there's more to that than we've actually addressed. Like what leads a linebacker to be like, oh, career backup. Now I'm going to start after career games. Like, no, I'd rather sell Pokemon cards than keep playing football. We got to get into that as well. So a lot more videos coming this week as we assess what's going on. The tanking question, we're probably going to have to readdress. We were like, you were kind of like, yeah, we probably should. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. After this loss, is tanking the way to go? And would Josh McDaniels do that? I mean, I guess it kind of depends how much fire's on that hot seat potentially that he's sitting on, right? Is Mark Davis texting journalists saying he's definitely our coach? Is that PR? Is that damage control? Or is that exactly what he's thinking? He's like, no, I'm sticking with Josh McDaniels no matter what. Does Mark Davis even fucking care? It's the most expensive ticket in football. He's Scrooge McDuck rolling around in $1 million bills. Mark Davis even care? All questions
man.
that we will get into this week. But until then, knock on wood if you're with me.